Welcome to the Airplane Spoon podcast, where I talk about real questions and real stories about feeding children. I'm Sarina Murrell, a feeding therapist and the director of the Airplane Spoon. Every week, I share stories from my feeding therapy practice and talk about the challenges many families experience around food and meal times. I'm so excited for today's question. Today's question is, can I give my child stronger flavored foods like spicy or sour? And if you've thought about this before, it's probably because you're hesitant, that you think that you need to give your child bland or kind of neutral or not so strong flavors because they're learning about flavors, or that might be too much or too strong for them. And yeah, some children might feel that that's too strong, but some might not. And they might actually have a strong interest in other types of flavors, just like you and I. Some people like spicy, some don't. Some like sour, some don't. Some like sweet, some don't. We can have differences in our flavor profiles and preferences, but the only true way that we can learn about flavors is through exposure. So, I want to share with you some ideas, some strategies about how you can expose your child to some different types of flavors. And you can learn your child's flavor profile and also know that that's going to change and shift and evolve as they continue to grow. So, the question again is, can I give my child strong flavors like spicy or sour? All right, so let's jump right in. Okay, so I want to start off with a couple of stories around this because I have a lot of different experiences around exposing children to different flavors, and they're all very fun and exciting. The first one I want to talk about is a little boy I'm thinking about. He's 5 years old, and he was really interested in the condiments that you can put on like hot dogs or hamburgers. And he saw these like at Costco when he went with his family and they got a hot dog. And he wanted to know about it because a lot of times kids are offered ketchup, but they're not offered mustard. And he said, is mustard bad? And I said, why would you think mustard's bad? Mustard's a food. There's no bad or good foods, just food is food. And he said, but yeah, they tell me that we can't have mustard. And so that came from some adult that he heard that, whether that was coming from school or from his parents or grandparents or somebody, they thought mustard is kind of sour or maybe a little spicy. And so that's not for a child. And he was questioning this. He was like, why not? Why can't I have mustard? I want to try it. It's a great question. Why not? Why can't we give mustard to a child and let them decide? We might be surprised that they think, I like it, I want it. Or if not, at least they have the experience now to base it off of I tried that and now I know that I don't like that right now. And it's important. I use this language all the time that I'm learning about that, or I don't like that right now, or I'm not ready to eat that yet. Because that leaves room for growth, that they might want it in the future. And I talk to the children about that a lot too, that I used to not like it, but now I like it, so that they can see that that can change and shift. So we did it. We got hot dogs and we put out the condiments. We also tried like the sweet relish, the pickles that are all chopped up. And he really didn't like that. I think it was a texture and the wetness around it. And he said, like, no, it's too kind of sweet and sour. I don't want to try that. And he tried it separately first before we put it on our hot dog. So we kind of squeezed them out on our plate. We did a finger try. Let's try ketchup. It's sweet. I know I like ketchup. I can put ketchup with my fries. I can put ketchup on my hamburger, my hot dogs. Okay, let's try the relish, the pickle chopped up thing. And it was different, right? From me, I said, "Oh, I really like relish, and I could eat it with a spoon because it's kind of like pickle, and I like pickles a lot." And his mom said, "I don't like it." But he's hearing the options that people can like different things. And then we tried the mustard. So we did a finger dip, and I said, "Oh, it's like sour. Um, it's got a pretty strong taste." And I'm just labeling it. I'm not saying like, "Oh, no, I don't like it. Oh, or it's really big." And he tried it, and then he tried it again. And then he tried it again, and I'm like, "You keep trying it. It seems like maybe you're interested in it or it feels good in your mouth." And he's like, "Yeah, I like it." So I was like, "Well, let's put some on our hot dogs then." And so we had our hot dogs and he squeezed some on and he ate the hot dog. He's like, "Oh, this makes the hot dog so much better." But he wouldn't have known that if he never tried it. And that came from him. So that's one story. The other story I want to share with you is about a little girl who was trying different foods and she kept hearing we were doing cucumbers and then she wanted to know about pickles. And her mom would say like, "Oh, pickles are really sour. I don't know if you're going to like them." And so immediately you can see that the language and the adults around children can influence their experiences. For her to say, "I don't know if you're going to like them," it already plants the seed of like, you're not going to like them. So we don't need to say those kind of things. It could just be like, "Oh, okay, you want to try pickles? Sure, let's try them." And so we got some pickles. I got some little baby pickles here. And we smelled it. We did like a finger taste. We even did like a tongue taste. And I said, "It's very lemony, it's very sour, kind of salty." And she's like, "I like lemon." "Yes, you do. You like lemon. So that makes sense." "I like salt." "Yes, you do." She likes salt. "So if you like lemon and you like salt, you might like pickles. Let's try." I said, "They're very juicy." So we bit through and she's trying it and she's like, I don't like the texture of it." And like she didn't like how it felt in her mouth, which is valid. Food is not just flavor, it's also texture. And so I said, "Okay, you don't like the texture of it. Let's go back to the juice of it." And so she was kind of like sucking on it. She's like, "I really like the juice, the flavor." I said, "Okay, so it's not the flavor, it's the texture." And we talked about like maybe if she wanted to add pickle juice to like her mayonnaise, she might like that. Or if she wanted to put pickle juice like on her burger or something, she might like that. But she knew that she didn't really like the pickle itself, but she got that experience of a stronger tasting food. The last story I want to talk about before I get a little bit more into flavor profiles is about another little boy. He's 7 years old. And he was talking about, how we put, like, sweet on sweet. Like, we put maple syrup on pancakes, or sometimes we put, like, salty on salty. Like, we put salty guacamole on tortilla chips. And I said, "Yeah, but doesn't mean you have to always put the same thing." Some people like to put, like, sweet on salty, like, might put maple syrup on sausages. Or one that I really like is I like spicy. And he's like, "I want to try spicy." And his mom's like, "What? Really? Are you sure?" And spicy is always the biggest one. Spicy is the one that gets everybody. Like, kids should not have spicy. But he said he wanted to try spicy. So he's motivated. Let's connect that. Sure, I got some spicy. I have this little like hot sauce that I had in the fridge. I said, "Okay, let's try it. We can put some on the plate and we can do a finger dip." And I said, "Let's have a plan before we try it because spicy is very big in our mouth." It doesn't mean, I said, "If I have a lemon and I make this face, it doesn't mean I don't like it. It just means my face reacted and maybe I want more. That I had this face and then I want more. And if I have spicy, I might be like, but I might want more." How we react doesn't really tell us if we like it or not, but it might have a reaction because it's strong. And so we need to have a plan. And so I said, if you have spicy and it feels too big in your mouth, what if you eat some food? Like he had mandarin oranges. And so could you have a slice of mandarin orange after you're tried the spicy? And that will make your mouth taste like mandarin orange and get rid of the spicy. I said, or if you want, you could drink some water. It might make it feel a little bit more spicy if it makes it go down, or we could try some yogurt. And so we had a plan beforehand and we talked about it. And so we tried it. He did a finger taste like this, and he's like, it's a little spicy. He grabbed a mandarin orange and he just ate it. And then he's like, oh, okay, that's better. And I said, okay, you tried it once. Are you done, or do you want to try it again? I just asked him. I wasn't pressuring him or making him do it. I just wanted to know. He said, no, I want to try it again. And we were doing like little pita bread things. And so he wanted to dip his pita bread in it and try it that way. I said, sure, let's do it. So he actually dipped it a lot. A lot of times children like to do big dips. That's okay. He learned. He did a big dip. He tried it. And then he like spit it out. And he's just like, it hurts. I don't like it. Okay. And he gets up and he tries to grab some water. And then he's like, And I said, I can get you some yogurt if you want. Yes, yes. I get some yogurt. He put some yogurt in and he's like, that's sour. It was unsweetened yogurt. It was just plain. And so he was having this experience, but I said, you decided this and you're controlling your body. Your body doesn't control you. And, I said, I'm going to keep eating it. And maybe in the future, you might like spicy. If you don't want spicy right now, I'm not trying to make it a big deal. And if somebody has spicy in the future or offers some spicy, you could just say, no, thank you. I don't want spicy. And it's not a big thing where parents are like, oh, no, no, no spicy. And so it gives an option. Um, I have another little girl actually who is 2.5 years old. She is learning about eating orally. She actually has an NG tube and she is practicing eating, but she doesn't eat most of her food by mouth yet. And she actually loves the hot Cheetos. She loves the really, really spicy Cheetos. And so I have these spicy seaweed crackers. These are from Trader Joe's. Um, that I was eating as my own snack. And so I offered them to her to try out. And they're like a little bit kind of like wasabi spicy, a little different than hot Cheeto spicy. But she was trying them and she was liking it. And she was licking it and she wanted to keep going. And so she enjoyed that. This was very helpful or gave her a lot of input to her mouth and she liked it. She kept going. Um, So we don't know. Everybody's mouth's a little bit different. Our flavor profile is different. The only way we're actually really going to know is by trying them out. And if a child has that desire, then we want to connect with that and give them that opportunity, give them that language, and give them those options of how to build up that learning so that they're not scared of it and that they're not feeling like the worst thing or it's going to be a really bad experience if that happens. Now, this is talking about flavor, but it can also be sensory exposure too. Sometimes when a child tries like a bubbly water, they're like, oh, bubbles go up in their nose. What's happening? It's an exposure, and they've never had that before. And it's just because they have this weird reaction doesn't mean it's right or wrong or good or bad. It's just new, but they might want more. Some children like to suck on lemons. Sure, why not? Why not? I have a dad of a child who drinks kombucha, the fermented kind of bubbly probiotic prebiotic drinks that are a little bit sour, kind of vinegary. And his son was really interested in it and he wanted to try it. And he's like, no, 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 it's sour. And I said, well, why don't we try it? He wasn't comfortable, the dad, giving it to him pure. So I said, what if we try it, maybe mixed with a little bit of water? Because the thing about this also is not just the child's readiness. It's the parent's readiness. If a parent does not want to give their child those flavors and they're nervous or scared around that, they might need some help to expose that to them. And that's okay. That's okay because they're worried about how their child's going to react. They're worried about that being a negative experience. And that makes sense. We don't want our children to be in pain or upset or have a bad moment. But we also need to expose our children because flavors are very wide and there's so many types of flavors and the range of flavors out there that the best way for a child to learn what their preferences are is through exposures and through safe and fun and positive exposures because feeding is a social experience. We eat together. And if I try this and say, oh, it's kind of sour. You want to try? That doesn't mean that somebody wants to try if I have this weird face, but we like to share our foods. We like to try to have that shared experience. And we want to be able to share our foods with our children. And if a child is not okay with a certain flavor, we can adjust that for them. Sometimes I have families that maybe do cook kind of spicy. Let's say they have certain spices that they use. Maybe they're related to their culture or just their preferences. Sometimes Indian families that maybe put some spicy or, you know, cayenne pepper or cumin or just different types of spices in their foods. Naturally, that's what they put. It could also be like garlic or ginger could be a stronger flavor. And they're very used to that, and they think that it tastes good, and they think that it's not strong. Now, a child might have a strong reaction to this, and so sometimes it's a little bit of the opposite of let's try this rice without these added spices so they can learn about rice by itself, and then we can try to change the spices up to see if they're okay and comfortable with that, if they're having big refusals that might be related to the flavor. And so strong flavors like spicy, sour, um, bubbly, or things that we think of are more like adult foods, they don't have to be adult foods. Kid foods is just made up. There's no such thing as like child foods, kids menu, kid foods. This is just something that exists because we think children need the sameness, that they want just the pizza, the chicken nuggets, the french fries, but children can eat any foods that adults eat. We can modify it for that to be a little bit more accepted and pleasurable and favorable for them, but that doesn't mean that they might not like spicy or they might not like sour. So we can try. If they're interested, if we ask them if they want to try, we could try and they can learn about that and have that decision themselves. Okay, that's what I have for you for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me on the Airplanes Food Podcast. Feeding challenges can feel really overwhelming for families, but you're not alone. Many children need time, support, and positive experiences with food as they learn to eat. Remember, you're doing an amazing job supporting your child on their feeding journey. You've got this. Love, enjoy, and eat.